I'm worried. You're worried? We're worried. Let's worry.
Hi, I'm Kevin McDermott,
And I'm Casey Grambo.
and we're performers at the CT Comedy Theater in Hartford, Connecticut. And while our physical space is shut down due to the pandemic, we're excited to bring our show, Little Worry, Big Worry, to you in this digital space. On each episode of Little Worry, Big Worry, we are joined by a very funny guest to talk about what we're worried about, the silly little things, and also some bigger personal fears. We talk it all over, we break it down, and hopefully at the end of the show, we feel a little less worried. Casey, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I am, feeling the changing of the seasons. It's been really wild doing a podcast in the winter, spring. I feel like it makes everything feel so immediate,
Our podcast is just
weather-wise.
yeah, no, I mean, it's ridden this changeable weather that we have here in New England, and I
Mhm.
feel like the podcast has evolved. It's a little bit hotter
It's a
nowadays.
little bit spicier.
A little bit hotter. We started out a little bit chilly and frigid, not in a bad way, but it
Like
really, if you were
in a
inflamed,
respectable way.
you come to our podcast and we'll take that inflammation right out of you with
Ooh,
our
yes,
cool.
rest, um, ibuprofen,
Yes, that's the I
compress,
in ibuprofen. Yep.
elevate, with our
Rice.
podcast.
So Casey's referring to rice, which is rinse your hair if you're injured, ibuprofen, clean your teeth, and then
Express
escalate.
yourself. No, sorry.
Express yourself at the mall. Go to Express. But Casey, we are hot these days. I mean, this podcast is heating up just like the New England springtime.
It is. I'm feeling like it's heating up, and, you know, let's just, like, ride this right into, your recommendation, um, was a pretty hot tip, and I will have to admit to you that as I have been to the Hartford Athletic, uh soccer games before and to the
Yes.
Yard Goats games. I have not been to one in this most recent season. I have not had my official like coming out of COVID like event that I've attended,
Yeah.
but I'm sure I'll be at one of them at some point. But I will tell you a very very short story about me watching a Hartford Athletic Club game on the television. Like we stumbled upon it on like public access or something.
Yeah.
I almost said public access.
I think
Oopsie.
channel 11. Yeah, yeah.
On Channel
Good
11,
good
and
broadcast.
I don't and this is absolutely no shade to the guys who are the announcers on it, but I know they're
Um,
somehow gonna listen probably gonna find this and listen and be like, "Literally kiss my ass, girl." But I will say, I don't like hearing I'll say American boys speak in British/English soccer slang. Like,
soccer ease, yeah. Yeah,
so
yeah.
saying things like pitch, nil, um,
That keeper had a clean sheet.
yeah, it
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
just
yeah.
ground my gears in a way that I
Oh, yeah.
couldn't listen anymore, so that I turned off the sound, um, and then because we're all just constantly watching TV and scrolling through our phones at the same time, then I was, like, missing things that were happening because, like, when you're watching any good long sporting event, you need the announcers to kinda be like, "Get your head up out of your butt and
Yep.
watch this moment," and I missed some stuff, and I was like, "This is not gonna work," so I had a very unsuccessful first viewing of a Hartford Athletic game that I just wanted to share.
So, to the Hartford Athletic broadcast team that is undoubtedly listening right now,
Yeah.
let's go back to some Americanisms. Let's get
Yeah.
this Anglophone kind of tendencies out of your broadcast because Casey Grambo does not care for it.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I played, I I was a high level soccer player,
Yeah.
and I just it just felt inauthentic, and I'm sorry. Like, eat a cheeseburger or something. Like, let's bring it back.
It feels like they're putting it on, it's like it's very much, I don't think they intended to be pretentious, but it kinda comes off that way,
It does,
like,
and
that's
listen,
the way you
I'm
gotta
I'm embarrassed to be
They're
be
kinda
so
trapped
honest.
though,
They're trapped.
I don't know
They're
if
trapped.
they
They're trying to make
they
it a
don't do it.
beautiful game. They're trying. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. We're all
But
doing
I
our
did
best.
the Yard Goats had their home opener last night. They're
Mhm.
on a homestand all the way through the weekend, and, I don't have tickets, which is regrettable because they're challenging to come by in any year, and now that they're, like, I don't know, I think maybe about half capacity, they're even harder to come by. But,
Mm.
God, baseball means warm weather.
Sure does.
Warm weather means our podcast is heating up. And
Sure
Casey, our
does.
guest tonight is just about as hot as they come.
Ooh,
I mean, honestly, like if we wanted to take our podcast up to another hot level
turn it up a
on the
degree.
old I go by Kelvin. Everyone knows that about me.
This is
I go on the Kelvin
this is
scale.
feeling
Yes,
slightly
right.
like related to like the English slang. So I am gonna
Is
ignore that.
my need to measure temperature in Kelvin? But honestly, folks, joining us today is a former carnival worker who once broke both of his elbows before flying to LA for a comedy show. He is SAG eligible and hasn't been a guest on a podcast in 10 years. Please welcome the amazing Dan Russell.
Woo!
Yeah, Dan.
Incredible
Yeah, Dan.
Hey,
Hello,
hey
Dan.
guys, how you doing?
Hey, we're good. Obviously,
Great.
I'm feeling a little spicy. Like I'm embarrassed with how out the gate I've been just disrespectful. So I think I
No, this
apologize.
is
Let's
hot. You guys
continue.
are coming in real hot. I'm
Yeah.
feeling both. It's feeling both caliente and California, like all kinds of hot.
Nice. Casey, that's what we've been going for. A little bit of the California caliente style. That's good.
Yeah, for sure. I
I'm glad
definitely
it's
haven't been
reading.
trying to be calm and generous and cautious. I've 100% just been flying 100 miles an hour with just disregard for anybody's feelings. So
That's
Yeah,
good.
especially soccer announcers. No regard.
I can't wait for the letters. The letters.
They'll be coming in. Casey, Dan, I'm gonna break form a little bit today, and before we get to our little worries officially, I have a former worry that I'd like to share with you, if that's all right.
Yeah.
It came up today, and I just wanted to share it. Um, one important note for this story that I'll try to tell very quickly is that at my job, I tested for COVID twice a week. I have to go in and do a self-administered little swab up my nose, and you stick it up far enough, the nurses say it should be uncomfortable but not painful. So anyway, that's an important detail because I was eating Welch's fruit snacks today, which
Mm.
I consume at this stage of the year. My anxiety and stress level is off the charts. I consume about half my calories in Welch's fruit snacks, just one after the other, just shotgunning them all day. I ate a bunch of fruit and I had to get tested today. So this morning I'm eating a bunch of Welch's fruit snacks and I kind of like snarfed one and it went up into my like,
Your
like it
soft
went down.
palate back there.
Yes, went up there. It was up there in my nose. So a few minutes go by and I start like kind of having a lot of snot and I start blowing snot rockets, which are like fluorescent pink, like artificial color Welch's fruit snack
You
pink.
love. I know
And
you
the
love a
only
good
thing
snot rocket.
I love them.
Have you
Love
had this
them.
problem before? Have you hawked out pieces of your gummies?
No, but I'm really trying. I'm really trying to get it out. I can feel it kind of like in my nose, like
Yeah.
up by my sinus, kind of in there. And I'm worried because I have a PCR test, my COVID test later in the afternoon. And I'm like, I'm going to stick that swab up there and just get a whole bunch of Welch's fruit snack on the end of my swab. This instant, the testing, they're not going to know what the hell's happening. So I'm really worried about how it's going to impact my COVID test. They've never had a Welch's fruit snack on the end of their probe before. Luckily, I just kept kind of trying to expel it, and ultimately, about half of a Welch's fruit snack came out of my nose, and all was right with the world. So went from very worried to not worried at all.
Whoa. I
Casey is at a loss for words.
No, I have I just
Coming
don't
out of
know
my
which
nose.
story I want to quickly tell in response to this. I will just tell the shortest story of one time at work because this is not this sensation you're describing is like so visceral. Like if anyone has ever
Yeah.
had this happen, like it is truly terrifying. You're just like my head is a mystery. What is going on? And um, like at one time at I was at work and there was just like a pile of Starburst that I was just consuming as my meal, and I half swallowed like a pink Starburst, and it just wouldn't go down, and so I was just sitting there, just like, "You're choking on a Starburst right now," and every time like I was like trying to get rid of it, there was like a juicy strawberry reminder that I was an idiot, and I was it was just terrible experience, but it is very odd to have like flavored juices, I guess, coming
Yeah.
from, you know,
It happens to
your
me
nose and throat.
it happens to me often when I'm eating a carrot. Like, I don't know what it is about carrots and the way I eat them, but, like, I'll kind of, like, do one of those things. That's gross on a
Like a
podcast.
Can you
just
get
a little
closer to the
louder
mic
for
for that one? There it is.
yeah.
And it'll go up. I will agree, it's terrifying when it's up there, but it is exhilarating when it clears.
Yeah.
I love it's just like a thunk out it, like, it clears. Oh, love it.
It's worth
Audience.
it. It's
Dan
like
looks
a
disgusted.
head enema. You're just getting it out.
It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, a little nasal enema.
Audience, I'm
Oh, I
really
love it.
sorry. I could talk about this forever, but I have to feel like I have to edit myself. So let's move on.
Let's move on. Thank you for letting me break form, and we need to move on to our our official little worries, Casey.
All right, you
which you're
guys.
leading us off here.
Yes, I'm going to lead us off. Okay, here's my little worry. You guys, I'm worried that my 20s are over. And by the way, I'm 31 years old. Yeah, I'm pretty worried.
That your carefree 20s are in the rearview mirror.
Mhm.
So it's that they were carefree, and that there are more cares now. Is that what it is?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's kind of I feel like I've been 30 for a while, like inside.
Mhm.
But and I'm not worried about like getting older from the sense of like I'm dying. Like that's not something that I'm necessarily putting first and foremost in my mind all the time. But there is something to be said about that the chapter of mistakes, acceptable mistakes being closed.
Ooh. See,
Mhm.
now that's interesting. Is that what 30 means to you? Is like you can no longer make just carefree mistakes?
You will now be tried as an adult.
That's yeah. There's
Yes.
stakes now once you turn 30?
In a way, I think that's true. Because I think
Yeah.
we've talked about this a lot in the podcast. I'm very susceptible to judgment from myself and others. And I think that I definitely judge myself, but there was always a little bit of a pressure release valve to kind of be like, oh, well, you're still young,
Yeah.
or even just feeling like just really kind of acknowledging like kind of the distance between me and people who are younger. I'm sure tons of people are seeing the memes or having the experience of people looking at driver's license and being like, "Oh, you're good to like get alcohol because like your birthday starts with a 19 or like your birth year starts with a 19 because people who were born in 2000 are 21 years old," which I was just kind of like so and that doesn't really bother me. It's just one of those things where it not that it creeps up, but I'm just like, "Whoa." Like I'm farther away from that than I realized. So, yeah, I'm just a little worried. I'm curious what you guys think.
I want to know something that since you have been 30 plus, that you have not gotten away with, that you would have gotten away with had you been actually younger. Did you actually get caught up in something adulty?
I don't think I've actually got caught up.
Like a wine tasting?
That you couldn't escape because of politeness?
No. I think that there's just some like indulgences of, just like I don't know, it's hard to describe. I think that there's lots of permissions you can give yourself when you're kind of like in that chunk of time, like engaging with like younger trends. I'm not talking about necessarily like slang, but like music and I'm not saying no one does this. It's just like one of those things where I'm just starting to feel more distance between myself and like, this. I would say this sweatshirt's a good example. Podcasters, I'm wearing like a tie-dye sweatshirt. This is very young people. Like I'm starting to feel old wearing this. But I wanted it and I got it like this year and I'm like, oh my God, I look like an old fucking lady with gray hair and a tie-dye sweatshirt. Yeah.
Dan, your question really reminded me of like the demarcation for me was when I now know like totally backwards and forwards my obligations and responsibilities. And when I was in my 20s, I would remember sometimes like the things that I was responsible and obligated to do. and be like, oh yeah, I should probably do that. And then at a certain point, whatever, 30, 35, you're just like, I know so in my bones and soul, like the responsibilities that I have because they're like a mortgage and kids to feed and a job and a career to try to cultivate. And, you're just like, oh yeah. And I just know that I own those responsibilities. And in my 20s, they were just kind of like things that I happened to engage with from time to time when I remembered to do so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dan, I don't want to interrupt if you have a thought.
No, I mean, I feel like 30 plus for me, who is older than 30, uh, I I feel like much more stable
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways, and I feel like that there was a lot more chaos before that, like
Oh, yes.
being married, having a family, having like a career type job, like for a long time now, having like, it sounds weird, but like the same friends, knowing the same people, your world, some people say when you get really older, your world gets smaller. But like right now, my world is like very defined and like stable, and that feels awesome. I think because it was a lot of like chaos before that. It was like, what am I going to do? What am I doing? How are things going to happen? How do things happen? But a lot of those questions are like just knocked down now, and that feels good to me. I don't feel like a lot of regret of like what could have been or what am I supposed to be doing. It's like right now I'm just like living in a good place, and like that's better than like the just constant buzz of what the hell is this world that happens like during your 20s.
That's so wise. I feel that 100%, Dan. You just put my thoughts and feelings into like concrete terms super well. Like that stability is very, very grounding and comforting and also like enriching, because you
Yeah.
live and expand within that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I
And
mean
so
it's
that's
like you guys know from improv, we talk about scenes that like you can like have the scene go forward in time, or you can have the scene get richer and denser and have things happen in there. And that's like where I'm at right now in my life. Like I think in your 20s, like you have a lot of new experiences. Early in life, you have a lot of new experiences. Things are novel, things are changing. You're making big life decisions that push you and pull you. But then now that some of those things are kind of settled, you really do get to live in it. And not to be like get all old man on you, but I remember 30, I feel like was a specific moment, like right over 30 and right around there, where like a lot of those things came into place like in a really good way.
Dan, don't you try to get old man on me because I will get old man on you. You think you can old out
Kevin's
man
gonna
Probably
me?
not.
deeply tuck in
Probably
his
not.
shirt
Oh man.
Oh
in an
boy.
aggressive
I I
way.
I would love I just be old man.
All right.
Bring the old
I'll
man.
live in it.
Love it.
I
Casey, does any of that resonate with your like
100%, and I think like that's something that I think is good. But I don't have a lot of regret about how I operated in my 20s. I think I'm happy with, family, friends, community, work. Like a lot of things have grown to a place that I feel really great about, but I also do feel like there was a certain like 100 miles an hour thrill ride of just like it felt like yeah, it just felt like 100 miles an hour, and I just feel like there is this like all these things are kind of happening, the pandemic, getting married, you know, all the stuff is like happening kind of at the same time, and it all slowed down really quickly, and I just feel like maybe I was kind of slowing down in the past couple of years, but if I think back to like, 2018, 2019, like those were really good years of my life that I look back on and I'm like, they were rich. I felt really fulfilled. Like,
are you talking about being impulsive, Casey? Like in
I think
the
impulsive, because I really do value being impulsive. Like,
hmm.
I think we talked about this a little bit that, when we talked about like routines that like I stray away from routines sometimes because I want to be able to be spontaneous and not feel like I'm breaking something that I like. Why exercise every morning when like I don't what if I want to do something else, or like, you know what I mean, like so I think there's a little bit of worry about the what I might lose in the opportunities to be spontaneous and impulsive because I'm not naturally that kind of person, but I like those feelings. So
Mhm.
I don't know.
And also perhaps just like having the freedom to know that maybe you could be impulsive if you so chose to do so,
Yeah,
if you chose to do so. And
yeah.
I feel like that that has been eliminated for me in large part. But as Dan says, like Dan, within the world of expansion, it's like, yes, in many ways, like kids and a house and all of the career, all of those things are very like stabilizing and kind of like nesting and rooting, but also with my kids, there's like enormous opportunities to be impulsive and
Yeah, totally.
um
Like you see all those new novel things through their eyes. You live your youth over again. Like you're glad to have them do it. You're glad to be like the stable thing for them.
Yeah.
yeah,
The other day, I was in the car and I had my MP3s going on random, and Radiohead's "No Alarms, No Surprises" came on, which is supposed to be this song about everything turns to gray oatmeal at some point in your life, and there's nothing, or it's going to be exciting again. But I was like, "You damn right, no alarms, no surprises. I'll take it. I love it. That's great." This like pandemic thing was a real bummer, and that was not what we planned on, not how it's supposed to be. But like that I want things to be right now. Where I'm at is like, yeah, stable, predictable. That's good for me. I'll be
yeah.
happy with that right now.
I, I'm 100% there. So Casey, maybe you can get there, or maybe you
Maybe.
are there, maybe or
I don't know. I don't
Or
know.
maybe you should just run. Just go
Just
while
rip the
your
headphone
knees
jack,
still work.
that's your
Just
rip the
choice.
headphone jack out of the thing and just run. And you guys are
Casey, you
like,
can go Thelma and Louise, or you can come over here and try to out old man me and
I
Dan.
can just live in your basement and try to out on me.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's funny to kind of, I think people who are listening to this who know me well are like, Casey's worried about leaving her 20s. Like, she never arrived. And in some ways, um, in other ways, I did. I mean, there have been many times where I've puked in places that was not due to alcohol consumption that was more embarrassing than not. Uh, but and I've done a lot of things that I really enjoyed and felt free to do. Um, but yeah, it's just interesting. I kind of
Do you want to
imagine
puke
getting.
in more places? Is that what you're saying?
I think that's what I'm saying. But I think
Guys,
I
have I
think.
puked in my last? Am I gonna puke in the same toilet for the rest of my life?
My
Oh my
God,
God, is this it?
I'm responsible for replacing this porcelain toilet when my stomach acid erodes it. But the I kind of see in some ways, and this might be my own issues, that as you get older, kind of like you guys are talking about, kind of the roots and the depth of your life kind of get deeper and wider. But like I also kind of see that as something that you kind of carry with you. So like I definitely feel that there is a weight that comes with it in some ways. But I don't see that necessarily as a negative, but I see it as like a thing. I do kind of see it as a weight, not in a way that's like necessarily negative. So, yeah, little worried about feeling old when I'm trying to feel light, if that makes sense.
I'm glad it's only a little
Yeah.
worry because it's okay. I think
I think
where
it
I'm
is
at
too.
now, anyway.
I refer to myself as only 31 when I talk to people. It's very intense. Like I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so old. But like I am acknowledging that like I am aging. I am acknowledging that uh things are changing. But yeah, I think it's just I don't know how much I cared about my 20s being crazy because I didn't actually act that way. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm sure other people feel this way too.
I along with Dan's point of like stabilizing and the real power from that, I just think of like how much more I've learned
Mm,
and know like from
Hmm.
having 20 more years of experience than when I was 20. And I just, and I hope like that trajectory continues to go, that I like know and learn way more in the next 20 years. Because when I was 20, I didn't know jack shit. And I thought I did, or thought I was smart. And I work with 20-year-olds who think they're like they know it all. And you're like, yeah, you're a smart person, but like, God, wait till you have 20 more years of life or 40 more years of life, God willing, and hopefully. Um,
right.
You as Dan says, like that stability and that like breadth of your life is wonderful, but also the depth that you can achieve as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's valuable, I think, but it might not be valued by the young.
No, but that's good. That's a good reminder though, too, Kevin, because like you are like a mentor to these kids that you see and you coach and you talk to all the time, and like there are like it's like totally a privilege to be like a stable person in a stable situation. There are people who deal with all kinds of shit. No matter how old they are never stable in that
Right.
way. And like when you can give that back to people, that's like awesome too. Like, you know, if you want to see like stability as a goal, it's like where you can then give back.
Yeah,
Like that's
stability is like a
great
pay it
too.
forward thing. I didn't think about
Yeah.
that. That's actually really, really nice to think about. This idea of like when you feel stable, yeah, it's like you can't fill up other people's cups unless like your cup's filled up, right? So I think that's pretty lovely to think about it that way. So guys, guess what? Not worried anymore. Maybe I'm
Yes,
This is
sad.
about, right? This is about killing people's worries, just
that's
making
right.
them, not letting them feel those feelings, right?
Just stabbing it.
This is a solutions show. We provide every solution.
Well,
And I'm glad we beat the Thelma and Louise out of you, and you're just coming over to the old man side.
maybe I'm just putting on an act, and you'll read it in the
Oh,
Current tomorrow, everybody. Anyway, well,
thank you, Casey, for sharing your worry.
thank you for listening. Thank you for expounding.
Yeah, that was a pleasure. And now we can't wait to do it with Dan's little worry.
Yeah.
If you want to take it away, Dan.
Sure. So, as was revealed earlier in this conversation, I have some children. I have two little boys. They are 8 and 6, and my 6-year-old is super spunky, and he's a spark plug and a little bit wild. And where we live, we have the street that we're on. There's no sidewalk on our side of the street. There's a sidewalk on the other side of the street. We don't live near a corner, so we have to kind of cross the street to go to the sidewalk to go for walks. It's kind of a busy road. It's a small suburban road, but we live right near a hospital. So there are people getting off of work at the hospital. There are people flying in labor or whatever. There's just people driving down our street all the time, way too fast for the small little road we're on. So it's like a busy, dangerous road. We go for walks on this road, and there's like maybe 10 inches between the sidewalk and the curb, very close. And my son, my little one, he like has no concept of what it means for a driver to see a kid on the sidewalk on the side of the road. And he'll be like weaving back and forth on the sides of the road. And for him, he's just like, he's on the sidewalk, and he's on the little grass part between the sidewalk and the curb. And I'm like, stay on the sidewalk away from the road. I said it over and over again to him. But he has, and so this is like my little worry, is that he is going to freak out a driver real bad.
Yeah.
And they're going to like swerve into the other lane, or they're going to like just slam on their brakes. Somebody behind them is going to hit them. He has like no awareness. He's got no theory of mind for the drivers. He can't conceive that a driver is going to watch him and think something about that. And that is like a constant struggle.
He also may think there's like a force field like that is impermeable right at the curb. That like there is just a barrier that protects him.
He hasn't tried to bounce off this yet. But maybe, I mean, when he gets to his 20s, I'm sure he'll be going for that. But as for right now, it's not like I'm not actually worried about him going into the road. I think he knows what that means, and he like knows that it's as if it was like in Hocus Pocus, or like it's a river. Like he knows it's like a barrier, and he should not go in there, and it's dangerous. But I'm just really worried that like he has no idea that him like moving in a sharp, quick motion toward the road is going to be seen by some driver, and it's going to end badly.
Oh my God. Ooh. I just want to say that I think this idea of like humans growing up to understand that their actions affect how other people react is just interesting. And is never ending. But there are some people, and they're not bad people, who literally do not fucking think about other people when they do things. And I'm not talking about like necessarily they say mean stuff or they do mean stuff. They just do things, and it's like, and I understand that I'm very sensitive, like, and that maybe what's going on to me maybe is a heightened version, but like, yeah, like if it was me in the car, I would be slowing down if I saw your son like down the street, like not in a way that I'd be like, it's a problem, but I'm like, don't, my job now is to not hit that person. So
Yep.
yeah, I wonder, I hope that's not going to be his personality forever, but it could.
Dan, there's this awesome book called Traffic by Tom Vanderbilt, and one of the chapters he talks about the perceptions, like how perception shifting, essentially. So an individual, if you're driving a car, you like have these super negative ideas about bicycle, a cyclist on the road, or a pedestrian. But if you're a pedestrian, you hate that driver. And like how those like shifting perspectives, like depending on your position, using a road or a sidewalk.
Yeah, whenever you're cycling on the road, you feel that real hard.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But when you're a cyclist, you're just like, I am the king of the road, and I am like eco-friendly and
Oh my
like
God, I don't
efficient and
feel that
getting
way when I'm on a
energy.
bike. I feel like I'm
Oh,
gonna die at all times.
oh, that's interesting because like when they poll, when they get data from cyclists, they feel like cars are the enemy, and of course,
Yeah.
cars feel like cyclists are the enemy. But anyway, I think for your son, it would be very interesting to see like what he actually might think of somebody who's like running in the road, or somebody who is cycling like in and out, and whether that like actually registers to him of like how of your idea of like theory of mind of like how would this be perceived by somebody else. That's very hard for a kid to have
Yeah.
that perspective.
My older son is much more of like a worrier and like more concerned about those things and like what that means, like more in like a rules following kind of way. Like he would probably be less likely to just dart toward the road on across the sidewalk, horizontally, because I've told him not to, and like he gets that that's not a good idea. But I don't know that he's any more aware of what it means, because he's also more oblivious. He may just kind of wander over there and not realize. But like, yeah, there's, to go back to what you were saying, Casey, it's like you want to believe that people are aware of you and your life, and they want to like acknowledge you, and like it's something at like as simple as like putting on your blinker when you're driving, to get back to like cheesy traffic cliche stuff. Like you put your blinker's not for you. It doesn't make your car turn. It's a signal.
Right.
I mean, you might do it because it's the law and you don't want to get pulled over or whatever. But you also might do it because you actually want to be a predictable driver, make the experience safe for everybody, and all that stuff. And that is like super important, like to consider the world around you and like what your impact is on it, and how people might be aware of you. Like to be a predictable driver, because not because like it's better experience for you as a driver, because it makes everything else more acceptable to everybody to understand what's happening in the moment. It's so hard to get people to make that first move to do that.
Yes. This is very interesting. Extrapolating this out further is like, why do people act the way they act? Like, are they doing it just because they have to do it? They have to follow rules? Are people like, and I think that they're like being someone who's always thinking about other people and not in like the, like, oh, I'm just trying to, I never take care of myself. I always take other, I'm thinking about like, just like never actually, like, not having self-awareness enough to like you're walking into the road because you're worried about something someone's doing over here. But yes, understanding your impact like that, I mean, it starts small, and I know we're beyond your son now, but like making decisions based on what your impact is going to be, like that is directly related to that. And what is theory of mind?
Theory of mind is just the idea that you understand that other things think, other people
Got it.
think. That they have thoughts that are outside of your own, and that you can like, you can impact them, that they have a self, kind of, other people do.
Got it.
And it's something that like, there are some people out there that I just wonder, like, for any given crime or infraction, or is there any punishment, or like fine or jail time, where that's going to stop them from doing that thing that they were going to do? Like, is that really what stops you from doing it? or you're just like you have something in you that's like you're like afraid to go against that rule because it's the rule, not because it's $250 out of your pocket if you get pulled over, but because you don't want to break the rule, or because you don't want to make things more dangerous for other people, or like you're trying to contribute to something better. I just wonder like how far that theory of mind goes from when you're a kid and you just haven't developed it yet to when you should have developed it by now, but you're actively doing things that are negatively impacting other people. Like, do you even realize it? Do you know? And then you're doing it anyway, which is like horrible to think about, but people probably are doing that.
In the case of traffic, it's a very in the most part, it's a very small number of people who do not recognize those relationships that you're talking about, that they enjoy the anonymity and the protection of their car and
Yeah.
kind of this impunity that they can do whatever they want and they can speed and weave and change lanes without signaling. But that's actually a very small minority, but they cause a huge number of problems. They
Mhm.
cause traffic jams and they cause like other drivers to be panicked and like hit their brakes, which causes a chain reaction. So it's like, I mean, again, this is based on a book that I think is pretty authoritative book,
Yeah.
but it is like caused by very few people who, like you say, in this instance of car usage, just ignore the rules. Fairly small percentage who have a huge impact.
That panic thing is important because if you are a person who has anxiety, that anxiety makes you wrap yourself up.
Yeah.
And you say I'm in a panic state, I'm anxious right now, I have to take care of number one so I can survive. And then you
Mhm.
get like tunnel vision and you block off the other people around you, and like so anxiety is like I think an enemy of this like theory of mind thing. Like if people who have like are dealing with anxiety don't have the luxury of being able to think about other people because they are like trying to survive in the moment. So somebody who's like nervous about being on the highway a little bit, like they can't even take the second to think about like, am I doing my blinker right to help other people? They're like, I gotta get off the highway alive.
Yeah.
And that goes for like all kinds of situations, like people who
Yeah.
are like who might snap at you quickly, people who are like afraid of somebody panhandling.
Mhm.
Like they can't even think for a second of like maybe this person actually needs help. They think like, oh my god, I'm in danger right now. And
Yep.
what they have that feeling, and you don't have the luxury of like generosity or empathy when you feel like blocked off that way.
And
Fear, class, all these things intersecting.
Totally.
Ah.
I think our
Ah.
behavior also is not static. So another phenomenon is that people start driving differently the closer they get to home.
Mm.
So
Right. All
you
like
could be
lots of infractions happen like right near your
oh
house, right?
just the opposite. So like
Oh.
you like if you're driving through a neighborhood that you don't know is far from your house, you may drive like above the speed limit and not very safely, but as you get closer to your home, patterns of behavior change because you might know more people or you might feel more of a social responsibility and this
Mm.
contract for the place that you live. So you start obeying more of the rules and start going a little bit slower and driving a little bit more safely as you get closer to your neighborhood. And there's a fancy term for it that I forget but like basically this behavior change, like as you become more identifiable, like,
Right. Yeah.
in
Like
my
as the
neighborhood,
shame meter goes up,
yeah, exactly.
or
People
like
know
you get
my car. They might know my face. I
yeah.
might know them from soccer or school or whatever. And so their
Huh.
behavior, changes. And I think that's a recognition of like that we belong to a community. But the shitty part is it like negates that there are other communities that we travel through that deserve just as much respect as our own.
And it sounds like Dan's son doesn't give a shit about his community.
Yeah.
So
He's
what
saying,
is
screw
he
you,
gonna do if
drivers.
you plopped him in another community? I mean, he's gonna be doing cartwheels in front of cars.
Maybe he's secretly defending this community from these drivers plowing
Yeah.
through. And
Just
he's like,
being like,
listen, you're going to have to reckon with this child shaped like the plastic thing on the side of the
just always darting. Uh, uh.
I think that's right. He's keeping those drivers' heads on a swivel.
road.
His
Be
little
alert.
child, he's alerting them.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This was sincerely interesting. And very stressful, Dan, for you to be dealing with someone who just has Just
Away
just a
from the
little
road.
wild.
Away from the road.
Dart left. Well, I feel like we can go on to big worries because this was fabulous.
That was a great little worry. Thank you for sharing that, Dan. And we're gonna, for my big worry, we're gonna stick with kids a little bit, because my big worry involves my son, who is going off to middle school next year. He's
Wow.
currently a fifth grader, and here in Connecticut, middle school starts in sixth grade, or at least it does in West Hartford, which is our school district here. So yeah, he's going off to middle school. And my worry is I'm worried about where he's gonna land and where he's gonna fit. Um, he's got a ton of interests. He's a, you know, confident kid in a lot of ways. But he doesn't like have a thing. And maybe so like this worry might be two part. One might be like my own framing from my own experience as a boy myself, and you know, from my own life experience of feeling like you need a thing, and somewhere to fit, and also like whether my son fits into that framework. When I was that age, it was always sports. I was you know, I was decently good at sports. I would whatever team I was on, I, you know, had a athletic ability that I could like play right away, and played a bunch of sports and was very fortunate to have that opportunity, and took it for granted that like it immediately allowed me entry
Mhm.
to a friend group and to an activity where I had like capital because I was decent enough at it. Um, and so I'm like, all right, well, what is that thing going to be for my son? And is that even, I don't know, how does that work these days also? And is that important? You know,
Mm.
how does that process work?
Interesting.
It's
So
worrisome.
like it
It
sounds
is
like
worrisome.
you're saying that there's no like clear thing. Is it like
Yeah.
is he like dabbling and like somewhat
Yeah.
into
He
some things?
totally. He's like got a big thing in some video game little things like Roblox and these things that he does with his friends. And he's into swimming, and he's you know, yeah, he does. He has like a lot of small things, but nothing necessarily that like he's really latched onto and is you know, and again, not that I want him to specialize and like get
Yeah.
into something like that's like the only thing that he does, um, but just somewhere that he really feels like accepted, and at the middle school level, as we were talking about earlier, at the adult level of stability and grounding and belonging, you know, something of the middle school equivalent for him. Um,
Mm. And middle school is definitely not the stable, grounded place in,
Nope.
I think, your school experience. You know,
yeah,
I was very much going to be like, yeah, like being a joiner, that's the way to kind of like solve these kind of challenges. But I'm now interrogating kind of that, you know, immediate reaction is because of what you were saying, like, you know, there is definitely positives and negatives that come with that. Like if you're successful in the thing that you do and you're like one of the best, or like you're good enough, and you know, people, it tends to be an easier time, you know. I think, and not everybody's the best or pretty good at the things that they want to try. um you know, it's hard. I think, you know, confidence and resiliency in middle school, I think, is really hard to cultivate, but like making sure that your son knows that it's good to try things and it's okay to fail at things, and that being nice is what's important, like, or kind, like, and
yeah,
that can kind of be some just like guiding posts for his behavior, and like kind of deciding where he puts himself and who he is around. Like I moved between 7th and 8th grade, so I mean, like, it was just a nightmare from hell when it comes to that kind of stuff, like, because you know, middle schoolers are terrible. Um,
Did you
And I
move like entire like
very
a
far
long
away,
distance? Yeah.
like
So you
5
just
hours,
started over.
6 hours away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
completely
I had
started
the
over.
similar. I had 3 schools in 4 years.
It's so
Yeah.
hard, and I feel
Yeah.
really lucky because, like, I was a skilled sports player, so, like, I had capital in that, and I had thought I felt like I had value, because of those things. I also did, like, music and stuff, and I did feel value there, but I feel like majority of my friends really came from sports, but, that's so problematic, and I'm gonna stop babbling because we all know what the result is on the other end of, like, the jocks and the this and the that is the people who feel like they don't fit in, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid, is that feeling of not fitting in. And those come from kind of groups that we're talking about how we benefited from. So it's like,
This is like hard for me to like imagine too, because like when I was in 6th grade, that was still elementary school for me, and I was very much a kid. Like I had baseball cards, and I played Super Nintendo by myself because it wasn't online, and I read books that were for kids, and I probably still play with Ninja Turtles. Like I didn't have like this like what club am I going to go out for, or what are my groups of
Yeah.
friends going to be. It was like the kids who lived near me, and we would do like kid stuff together. Like there was not even like any of that stuff then, and I feel like I was like a slow maturer or whatever, but like I would not have been I would not have done well if I was expected to be like in a high school type society in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Like it took me a long time to get anywhere near there. So like there's something to be said for like still figuring yourself out, or just like having a bit of self as all these things are around you, as you try on these different groups and you see like, oh, these are my home friends and these are my swimming friends, and like which ones am I like, or what parts of my personality I'm going to take with that. Like having something that is just you to center it is not a bad thing at
Yeah.
12 years old.
Dan, I love your description of like that time of innocence, because it does feel like there's a rush for like over professionalization in children,
yeah.
and like siloing very quickly and defining their activities. One encouraging thing from the pandemic, my son and his like little gang of friends in the neighborhood would just ride their bikes for hours,
Yeah.
and he would come back and would be like, What'd you guys do today?" And they would go to Elizabeth Park, and they would play. He's like, "Oh, we just played in the ditch." And we're like, What? Like, you just played
Nice.
in a ditch?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, there's a ditch and we play in it." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude. Yes." Like, still riding bikes and playing in ditches. Like, because you worry of like, I don't want him to specialize. I don't want him to be a freaking professional. Like I want him to find his passion and things that he really digs. But riding bikes and playing in ditches, it is like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and, flipping baseball cards. Like, yeah.
And let's be real, like, we go through all this freaking turmoil of middle school and early high school just to return to riding bikes, aka driving cars, maybe if you have one, or walking
Yeah.
and riding bikes and standing by freaking ditches again anyway. Like that's all just standing around like talking or whatever. So it's like, yeah, there's lots of I hope, eh, I I I also feel like there's so much tied up in like, oh, who you gonna be? What are you gonna do? And with like college and stuff. And it's just like, yeah,
Mm.
kind of like only directing your energy in school toward activities that like get you into school, I think is like also kind of a problem. And doesn't necessarily let you speak. This is what I was talking a little bit about, like failing. Like, I think, you know, there's a lot of uh yeah, you should be able to fail in high school, at trying things. So I didn't feel like I had that space. I was like, I
One
know I'm good at these things, and I got to keep getting better and better and better until I'm the best.
Mm.
So Casey, one kind of thing I think maybe for the next part of this conversation is like he's in a tiny elementary school.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's a local, neighborhood elementary school, and it's the smallest in West Hartford. And I think like he's also in a tiny class. So most of the grades have 3 different classes. His is so small, there's only 2. And I think kids and he got really defined kind of early on and was trapped by like there's not a lot of space and there's not a lot of like options. There's not a lot of like other kids.
Anonymity.
Yeah, so actually, like, going to a bigger middle school, I hope will just be, like, totally freeing of, like,
Mhm.
there are way more options to fail and find and whatever, like, experiment. So maybe that bigger environment is way more comforting and productive for him, in finding his spot.
That is one thing I liked about that time when those things do expand. You do get to have those different selves. Like when before then you have like maybe your school self and your home self, but that's it. But then soon you get to have, oh, this is my little league
Mm,
self, and this is my people who talk about video games self, and like you can start to like be those different things that are different facets of your own personality too, which is like fun to discover and just to recognize that you can be more than one thing too. It's not necessarily specialization. It's a bunch of stuff to try.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, generalization. That's so smart. God damn it. I love when we have smart guests on,
Well,
Casey. God, it's
it's
so
been good so
great.
far. Yeah, everyone.
Multiple selves. It's so right. Like, yeah, when you're a little kid, man, then it just blows out as you get older.
Mhm.
I also was in theater, and I mean college I studied theater, and like all through middle school and high school I had that community as well. And
Mm.
in my experience, both like athletics and artistic were super welcoming and wonderful, like little tribes to belong to. And then I don't know, even middle school, like just discovering, as Dan says, like all those other like facets of your interests, the multitudes that you contain. It is an important part of the process.
What a weird time. What a stinky weird time.
That's so interesting because
Yes.
again, this is 30 years past, but I was like, oh, I really liked middle school. Like, even though I switched schools 3 and 4 years, I always had sports. I like always was like grounded on a team. I was like, oh, this is, yeah, I don't remember it being unstable. I remember being super exciting because I discovered the opposite sex and that I really liked them too. And was like, I kind of was
Mm.
decent at that
I
too.
had
And I
the
was like, oh,
internet. I had the internet in middle school, so welcome to that shit show.
I
So
think all through middle school and high school, I had tunnel vision. I just had no way
so
to
Kevin was a
deal with
Casanova.
any of
Dan was like this, and I was like talking about XYZ on AIM or whatever. Ay. Hard
I was
times.
fearless with that. I wasn't I don't know, necessarily successful or but I
Lots
was
of
always just like
lots of notes,
I
Kevin.
well no, I was like I like talking to girls. And I was like, I don't know, at a time when people were like it's weird or uncertain or scary to talk to girls. I was like, I think it's freaking awesome. Like it's super fun. Like it's a
Girls are really
thrill.
fun. They're
It's
super fun
great.
to talk to.
Girls are the best.
I
Or
really
and
prefer
guys,
talking to girls.
I love talking to everybody. Well, thank
It's
you guys.
awesome.
That gives a lot of different ideas and a lot of different perspectives on the possibilities of middle school. And I do. My son is like incredible. He is so much more empathetic and sensitive and aware than I am. It's amazing. I like love his emotional intelligence and I try to emulate him in many ways because he's a very good kid. So he'll find something that really moves him.
Beautiful. Dan,
Yeah.
big worry.
Yeah,
Hit
my
us.
big worry. Oh boy. All right. So, I mean, there are big worries that we're just not going to get into here because this is not the Gaslit Nation podcast. This
It's true.
is not that kind of podcast. Thinking about
No.
those kinds of things all the time. But I one thing I just keep thinking about because it's just happening right now, and I'll just call it. It's time to buy a house,
Oh yeah.
Mm.
and that's just like something that is intense in a lot of ways, especially in this particular moment when
Right
there's
now.
crazy
Yeah.
housing prices and all that. I have been lucky to have a really good living situation for a long time now that is like comfortable and functional for our family, but like we're starting to get to where it's not anymore. We're getting a little bit bigger. I recently took a job that is a little bit farther away, and when we have to be in person, it's going to be nice to be over there. Also, there's that feeling of this is a chance to like have our family have our own setup
Mm-hmm.
and have it be like our family's house because it's a house that we picked out, that we like the way it looks, that we made these choices, we like the neighborhood that it's in. It's deliberate and it's us and it's like a start that's fresh. There's just a lot with that. Now, you both have gone through this,
Mm-hmm.
some more recently
Mm-hmm.
than others. And it's strange because I have been for a while now, like dabbling with this. Like I said, because the luxury we have of the situation we're in, we haven't had to buy a house. And we still don't have to right away, but we want to.
Yeah.
And there's just so much to consider about like, is it the right neighborhood? Do we like this place, like this location? Is it walkable? Is it close? All these, you start to realize your values.
Yep.
Like, is it where I want my kids to be like hanging out with other kids? Is it like diverse? Is it like, can we go to a park? Can we like relate to the people there? Can we get a house that feels comfortable, both in like its style and like its actual features? And all this stuff is like, you're constantly like analyzing the shape of your family. It's actually kind of nice to like focus that lens and be like, okay, this is what we're into. And it's nice to
Mm-hmm.
have this like discussion point for my wife and I to like talk about the way we are, because it, in a lot of ways we are our own people that are together, and we have our life together and we have our kids, which are we're both parents of, but we also are still individuals. But this thing is like a deliberate choice to have a home base.
Yeah.
And how does that match us? You know?
I love the way you're talking about it. You can go, Kevin.
No, I'm just saying. Yes, you're making me worried about it for sure. But you're making me worried by remembering and recalling all of these discussions. And frankly, it's I think very powerful that you and your wife are having all of those discussions. I know, my wife and I talked about those priorities as well. But God, I will admit it. I mean, my wife carried, so much water on finding our house, like the research and the options and all that. Then you get into all the nuts and bolts. Once you talk about the philosophy of it,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like the logistics of
Mm-hmm.
finding a potential place or potential places. Um, but yeah, man, you talk about like expanding your responsibilities. It is like thrilling and empowering and like what a wonderful like huge leap to make. But also, whew, I mean, it's heavy, like hanging over you. But for us, it was just like, wow, this after years of like renting and saving, then it's like, wow, we can buy a starter house. And then
Yeah.
like that house was wonderful. And then it's like, oh, we could sell this house and like find a different house that might more closely match like the things that you're talking about. And it's like, yeah, we felt very, very like positive about like that process of like, well, we'll save, and when we can do this, we'll do it. And I don't know. It was very, very nice to finally be able to achieve it. But yeah, a huge, huge hassle and worry. Are
Something.
you worried about finding the right place or
That is like
more
that's the biggest thing, is like
Yeah.
finding the
Yeah,
right place that's right for us. Like I'm not,
right.
I mean, there's obviously like financial concerns
Yeah.
that you would have. Like we
Sure.
don't want to spend too much. We don't want to be like
Yeah.
house poor or whatever. We want to like find something that's comfortable financially. But like I'm not worried about, we're in a place where I don't have to feel like we have to worry about it unless this housing market continues to go crazy. But like that's not the big worry. The worry is like just that it's right for us, I think, more than
Yeah.
anything. And that it's like, because like so you're saying you got a starter house, and we're close in age, and this is, we haven't had a starter house, we never have had the first house yet. So it's also like we're a little bit older when some of other people, other peers, have already had 2 or 3 like houses that were their house. So that's a little bit different for us also too, is that we're like doing this for the first time now too.
For
Yeah.
whatever it's worth, our starter house was a disaster. And knowing
Great,
what we know about
great.
knowing what we know about homes now, like it was an incredibly important part of the process. But like now that we've gone through the process of like buying a couple of houses, we're like, why would we ever have bought that home? Like there were so many problems with
Yeah.
it, and like it was a nightmare in many regards. But important part of like home ownership of like it was a cheap house that we could afford, and there was a reason that it was cheap. So
Yeah.
but then yeah, we I don't know, eventually it was perfect for us at the time. And then yeah, moved past that one.
Something I'm thinking about is this. So it's like two things. So I'm thinking about process for a second. So like the fact that
Mhm.
like you and your wife are and your family are talking about like what you want and kind of like creating this like kind of philosophy, this like, you know, I'm gonna avoid like ideal because what we talk about, what I'm gonna say next is gonna negate this. So this kind of like um this kind of like outline. Like I imagine it is kind of like you're looking at a house that's like it doesn't have a shape, but it has a feeling and it has, a general size and it has like a, uh, you know, like I really wanted to make like hosting is important to me. Like we went
Mhm.
into some houses where the ceilings were so low that I knew that my dad and my brother would have to duck to be in the house. And I was like,
Yeah.
this will literally drive me crazy my entire time I live here. Because I wouldn't feel like it was welcoming. So like I think like knowing kind of the big like words that we want to feel or do, blah blah blah, are going to be helpful so that you can kind of act quickly in this time where interest rates are so low that if you do find something that's in your range that's comfortable, you can act quickly. And the other thing is like you can put an offer in on a house and you don't have to accept it. That was something that was so luxurious and fabulous to realize, is that like even if an offer that you give gets accepted, like you can end the negotiation kind of like there's lots of points where you can go back on it. And you probably
Yeah.
already know this, but there might be people listening to this. So like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that when we were looking at a house. Like it feels like a huge commitment, but there are actually a lot of times where you have an opportunity to like end the relationship of the sale. So
Mhm.
like, and the one other thing is I think I definitely don't think like serendipity and like perfect timing are these things that you should lean too hard on. But I think that people who are looking for a house, Dan, we're talking about your specific worry. Like, I think that there's not going to be a perfect house. And even
Yeah.
houses that you build yourself, like, they're not going to be perfect because time happens and like neighborhoods like grow and like, you change and like, there's just like a lot of things that could happen. So I guess the way I was kind of thinking about our house is like, there were some things that I knew I wanted to do that in the long run I thought were important. And then there were some things that I was like, these are some risks, but like in the end, it is a very big risk. So within the scope of the financial risk, some of the other risks are they kind of fade to the background as not as important. I don't know if that's I'm not trying to solve a problem, but I just figured I'd start talking about my thoughts.
No, I mean, like we're not waiting for a perfect place. Like we
Yeah.
know things that like are like, you could say they're deal breakers or whatever, but then there's just some things that it's like it'd be nice to have. I like to think of myself as like kind of chill and not super picky, but then you realize you start to do this like, I hate that. I never want a house that has this feature or whatever it is. Like you start to realize that you are picky and you do want things a certain way, but we're not trying to find an exactly perfect right place. We want to find something that will work and that we're happy with, and that doesn't have these things that we necessarily do not want.
Right.
I liked that part of the process, and it applies also to my professional job of like helping people find if they're interested in college and
Yeah.
specifically athletics in college, trying to find the thing that's right for them. And it's like you do have to accept imperfections because there'll be features that you're like over the moon about, and then other things that you're like, "Oh, I'm not really psyched about that bathroom. Like we're gonna have to
Yeah.
remodel that at some point." And it's like I guess maybe some people are in a position where it's like, no, they don't have to compromise on anything and they can get everything so perfect. I'm not, and we're not there. It's like, no, how do we reckon with like
Yeah.
priorities and compromise and imperfection and being okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we watch these HGTV shows sometimes together, and the people will talk about like, I don't like the wallpaper in here. Like, it's wallpaper. It
Right.
is. That is not the house. You get rid of that.
Yeah.
I don't like the paint in here. Paint it differently.
Right.
You want to live in this structure, in this location on the map. That's what
Love
you
the
got to
paint
consider.
here. It's just like a giant like turd that's been painted really well.
But Dan, I love that of like, what are your
Yeah.
priorities? And for us, it was like
Yep.
schools and I wanted a yard.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to be outdoors.
And when you know
I'm an
that,
outdoors cat. Like
yeah.
I'm not an indoors cat. And it has to have some space outdoors that I can be. Yeah. Aside from that, I don't really give a shit. It's like, I don't know. I'll put my clothes wherever and
Right. Yeah. You just need a dresser in a yard.
that's over. That's yeah, dresser in a yard. And sometimes the dresser's in the yard, and that's fine by me. But yeah,
Mhm.
what are your priorities? And I think it's beautiful that like you can have that conversation, as a family and figure out like what a powerful and kind of unifying thing to be able to do
I
that.
guess like just the worry of it is, are we going to really find it, and are we going to feel happy with it? Because it may be that like one of us makes like this compromise that we're like iffy
Yeah.
about, and then it like doesn't feel as great, but you hope that it's going to feel awesome. Like I'm like, I don't know if I want to live in a ranch, and my
Yeah.
wife's like, ranches are awesome, and I'm like, I don't know. So that might be
That's
one of those
hard.
things. Who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe you'll see
That's
us
hard.
one floor living someday.
You know what, Dan? Let's go on the podcast right now and just say what you are excited about. That's not a ranch, not as a direct antagonistic
Mm,
point against ranches, but I do want to
mhm,
know, like in a MASH style or Marsho style almost, mansion, apartment, ranch,
mhm.
house,
Yeah, I'll start
or
drawing the spiral. Tell
outhouse.
me when to stop.
Stop. No, but
Okay.
really, what kind of house do you want?
I mean, what I like aesthetically is like a old Victorian house. Like I like or older houses. I
Yeah,
like a New England house in a neighborhood that's like on a grid with sidewalks. I like wood features inside. Like that's my jam. That kind of thing. And that is I realize I don't always like those houses either because they can often be very like boxy.
they're extra a
Like
little sometimes
yeah,
too.
yeah, they could be very very ornate and too much to like keep up if you're going to feel bad if you start living in the house, or like it's just got this like this room is the butler's pantry, and like that you can't see anybody else in the entire house when you're in there. Like there's completely walled off because that's how you had to conserve heat in those days or whatever it
Right.
was. So like it's nothing is perfect. Nothing, we already know nothing is perfect. That is like if I see that, I'm excited about that. And then we start talking about like other things we like. Oh, a finished basement would be sweet. An attic, it's finished, or we could finish. That would be sweet. That kind of thing.
Mm.
You know,
It feels endless. I feel like we were really driven by the interest rates and just kind of like an emotional need for a project and a change. Like
yeah.
last year was like there were lots of things that happened that were like hard, and it was just like for the world, but also just within like our families, and there was loss, and there was, grieving, loss of events, people, all these things. And it's like we just needed something to do. Not, which sounds like kind of stupid, but it was just like we
No.
were already kind of thinking about it. And I think we moved quickly, but we moved, I think, intelligently. And it's hard to kind of match those up sometimes. And then I think the reason I'm saying that is because I think the long process is a worrisome process. Like, and that's okay. But like, I do feel for you that you're kind of in it for like for a while. Because it
I'm
does
looking
suck.
forward to that though. I'm looking forward to like that we did it. Like this is the thing, we're gonna be working on this or
It's
whatever,
great.
like
It's very, I don't know. I'm you might feel this way, Dan, too, because the way you were describing how like you're comfortable with just what you have and like, like you're willing to be flexible to just kind of like be where you are. Having that abundance of like this is what we wanted and we got what we wanted can feel extremely embarrassing and um uh humbling in a way that kind of like can tamp it down, but like having had those feelings a little bit, like I really do, I hope that your whole experience is just like wildly like open and joyous, like, you know because you guys have done a lot of, you've waited a long time, and this is going to be, it's not going to be a starter house. You guys are, you
yeah.
kind this is kind of like a big move, so I'm excited for you.
Thanks, Casey.
Yeah.
I'm excited as well.
Thanks,
Didn't
Kevin.
sound like
Don't
it.
try to out excite me. Just because I've been quiet for a couple of minutes doesn't mean that my
Kevin's like, he's
exciting
getting a
is
house, big deal.
whatever.
Few
Oh,
times.
oh, good for you. You talk to your wife. Oh,
Wow.
la-di-da, Dan.
Cool.
Look
Good
at
for
this
you.
cultured guy who actually communicates with his wife.
Cultured guy.
Jeez, Louise, Lordy. No, I'm excited too. Don't you try to diminish my excitement, Casey. How dare you?
I tried. I couldn't. Oh my god. You guys.
Dan, thank you for sharing your worries. Unbelievable.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And also for offering such goddamn wisdom on our little worries, Casey. I thought Dan just brought the old man wisdom.
Yeah, Dan, are you an oracle?
And I mean that in a complimentary way, not pejoratively.
His beard is getting grayer by the day. I'm glad to put it to good
God.
use.
Oh my god. It's happening.
So smart.
I'll let you know if I get my hair dyed on Saturday. Now that I'm vaccinated, I'm like, haircut, it's time for a haircut. So we'll see if we dye any of these hairs, but I don't know. Might just let them fly.
Yeah, own that 31-ness.
Oh my god. Yeah, I think I might. All right, I think we've gotten to our final segment of the podcast.
Yeah.
This was so fun. I'm so happy. But now we're gonna recommend something good, podcast audience. Kevin and I are gonna recommend something to each other, and then we'll kick it to Dan to either recommend something or plug something. It's really up to him. Kevin, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm going to do what we in the industry call a callback and recommend Welch's fruit snacks. One was lodged in my nasal cavity earlier today. I don't recommend that, but I do recommend Casey Welch's fruit snacks. I eat way too many of them. At BJ's, you can get a 90 pack of these little 70 calorie, they're just little fructose bombs of Welch's fruit snacks. But 90 at BJ's. I think it's $8.99 for that 90 pack. But I like run on them now, and they're so goddamn delicious. And they have the nutritionism like perfection of like you actually think there might be fruit in them, or you're eating something that is fruit-ish, and even though you absolutely are not. And so they're like delicious. I love them. And yeah, they're driving me these days. So I recommend
America
Welch's.
runs on Welch's.
That's right. That's right.
I'm a gummy freak. I'll definitely eat them, and I used to eat them all the time behind the CT bar as a snack.
So good.
I was like chugging a PBR and like eating fruit snacks. So it was a vibe for sure. I'll get back into it.
PBR and WFS's. Your Welch's fruit snack. Oh yeah.
Okay, so I've got a ridiculous recommendation for Kevin, and you can do it or you don't need to.
I'll do it. Don't tell
Okay.
me I don't
Fine.
need to do it. I'll
Now
do
that
it.
I've threatened you and poked the bear,
That's right.
my recommendation is jean jackets.
Oh!
Wow. Yes.
And
why am I wearing a jean jacket the next
Okay.
time you see me?
So I'm recommending jean jackets because, a light jacket is hard to come by, and both in use and in, kind of acquiring. There's not many moments for a light jacket to be relevant, but when it is, it's beautiful. And I bought a acid washed, not like full acid washed, calm your jets, everyone. Like medium acid
Calm your
washed.
jets, Def Leppard 86. All right.
Exactly.
Calm your jets, Joan Jett.
But it's like a acid washed, like black denim chore jacket. And when I wear it, I feel like I am in charge. And I think
All
that
right.
everyone and I'm the right temperature. I just really think you should get a jean jacket if you don't already have one.
I do not, but I love the idea. I'm gonna be on the lookout
Yeah.
for a jean jacket.
It's a great place. I got mine from Old Navy. Like there might be some shade at Old Navy. I really like it.
All right.
You can go to Goodwill. Great jean jacket spot. I mean, you just don't do it if you don't want to, but you probably do.
I want
Well,
to.
I
I had
like-
2 jean jackets growing up. I lost them both. One when I was very young, and it was like a big thing of like, we can't get you another one if you're just gonna lose it. And I lost the other one. But I remember like drawing on it, like with a marker, like writing stuff on it, like drawing like pictures of like Mario. I think I wrote like Vanilla Ice on it and stuff
Mm.
like that. And it's for me, like maybe it's because it's a school time thing. I associate them with like fall, like the chill in the air is when I want to wear a jean jacket. So I'm probably not gonna running out and get one right now. But I want one. Now I want one again. So I
You
have
gotta
not
get
had an
one.
adult. I have not had the adult denim. And I think I need that.
I've been wearing it over my sweatshirts in the morning, like going outside with the dog. Like it's kind of like it's very like early morning camping vibes. Like
Yes.
yeah. So that's my recommendation.
I don't think I've ever, Casey. I don't think I've ever had a jean jacket on my body.
That's
I mean,
surprising.
Dan triggered that. I've never owned one. I've never had occasion to borrow a jean jacket that I can think of. Maybe for like a Halloween once,
Are
but
you a fan of jeaned pants?
I love them, and
You
that's
like-
what I wear
yeah.
every single day of my life. So
That's what you want that. You want that all over.
I love it. I want it top and bottom, Canadian tuxedo, and man, off we go.
That's the good thing about getting the black denim is because then you can wear it with your blue denim pants and you don't look crazy. Ugh, man. Well, that's
Well,
my
thank you for that.
goofy
It's a great recommendation. I accept. I'll go to Goodwill at some point over the next few days.
I'm excited. I
Get me
I
a
plan
jean
to see
jacket.
you walking by my house, just like
And you'll be like, "Who's that guy who looks like he's in charge?" Oh, he's wearing a jean jacket. That fellow. Oh, that's Kevin. He's in charge because I told him to wear that jean jacket.
Well, Dan,
Love
let's
it.
kick it to you.
I will quickly plug the CT Comedy Theater, as you mentioned in your opening. By the time you hear this podcast, we will have announced a fundraiser event to help us get back open. We would love for you to contribute anything you can, and we'd love for you to be a part of our community. If you are in the Hartford area, Hartford, Connecticut, we would love to have you come and see a show, take a class. We are out of commission for over a year now, but we want to get back to where we were. So whenever you're comfortable, whenever you're ready, we want to be there for you to come back to. So please come see a comedy show, be a part of the CT Comedy Theater scene. We would love to have you. Then I'll also say I'd recommend baseball cards. Go crack open your old baseball cards and look through them. You will have some serious flashbacks to when you were in 6th grade, when 6th grade was still elementary school. And you'll be looking through them and take, I remember this guy. Oh, this card was cool. This horizontal card. Oh, it's awful. It'll take you back.
I love it. I'll bust out my old baseball cards the next time I'm at my parents' house. Yeah. And yes, we, as Dan said, Casey and I are regular performers at the CT Comedy Theater. Casey has been involved in many, many, many leadership positions at the theater, but Dan is one of the co-founders of CT, one of the spiritual rocks of the entire community, and an amazing friend and co-performer with me and Casey many, many times. So support the theater, support Dan Russell because he's the best. And thank you, Dan, for being on the podcast this episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been really great. I'm gonna do another podcast
Yeah.
in like 10 years. I swear, it'll be great.
10 years.
Catch you in a
You can come
decade.
back and you can try and out old man me again, but I don't know if it'll be successful.
You're on. It's a date.
All right. Bye, everybody. See you next time.
See ya.